not too much to present, but wanted to share that we've got a busy week ahead of us here. A couple items might be of interest. Tomorrow, scheduled for introduction is legislation that I have prepared, creating a Ready to Learn initiative, which is to create a fund to focus investment in low-income children and increasing their access to quality care in the year before kindergarten. And the fund is limited to children from families that are under 200% of poverty. And it will be taken up at committee in the coming weeks, and I'm looking forward to the discussion. We'll be getting the county executive's operating budget this week, as you know, on March 15th, and we're very much looking forward to beginning our review. We have a town hall on Wednesday night at 7. The meeting starts at 7:30, doors open at 7, and it's in White Oak at the White Oak Recreation Center. Of course, people from all over the county are invited to participate. On Friday, there is the Montgomery County Chamber of Commerce's Public Safety Awards luncheon, and our county executive will receive the Chamber's Public Safety Champion of the Year award, and there will be a number of other awards provided to county partners that have been involved in very significant public safety issues. So those are my items, and welcome questions you might have.
Mr. Council President, the Ready to Learn initiative, is this a foreshadowing of universal pre-K in Montgomery County? Is it trying to set the county into motion towards that goal?
This embraces an approach that many of us call incremental universalism. And the idea is you want to be able to create access for every child in the community to quality, affordable care. However, there's only so many resources to go around, so you need to focus on kids who don't get quality care. And when kids are coming into kindergarten ready to learn, that's going to pay off for every family in the community, because the classroom as a whole will work better when all kids are on a more level playing field. So this is to focus investment in a step-by-step manner on the most disadvantaged kids. It is embracing the philosophy the council embraced last year when we made Head Start a full-day program, when we expanded child care subsidies. There's a lot happening right now with child care subsidies. I'm sure you're aware of the state legislation. Today, if I'm recalling correctly, the amount of state subsidies flowing into the county only cover a fraction of the cost of child care, something like 5% of the cost of child care. And the state legislation will require the subsidies to cover 60% of the cost of child care. It will take several years to get there. So that's a substantial infusion of funds if that legislation passes. This is similar. It's targeted, focused on lower income kids, but at the same time, one of the interesting dimensions to it is that it's open to any licensed provider. There's also a higher subsidy rate for providers that have Excels 3, so they have really the highest level of certification. So this is consistent with the step-by-step approach to creating opportunity for children and making sure that every child is coming into kindergarten, having had the opportunity to experience the benefits of quality care and instruction.
What's Excels 3 again?
Excels is the state's kind of certification ranking program. It's called Excels.
Right.
And so providers certify themselves through various procedures.
Do you know how many in the county have that?
Couldn't give that to you off the top of my head, but it is available from the Maryland Family Network, which is the state's child care policy group.
So just so I'm understanding this program correctly, this idea, is this actually going to fund this year?
No, this doesn't create money. What this does is create a program that would focus on these children. The council would have to find funding if the council were to support the legislation, which I hope it will.
How would they determine which children are in it?
Children who are 200%, their families are 200% of poverty or lower.
Okay.
Poverty.
Federal poverty, which is quite low, as you know. Federal poverty for a single parent with one child is, I think, about $16,500. So 200% of that would be a single parent earning, $35,000.
And this is 1 year before kindergarten.
It actually, that's the intent, but we didn't write it so it was restricted only to the 4-year-old year. You could envision it applying as well to the 3-year-old year. But the idea is, families might have their kids in family care, in their own personal care, but they need that acceleration. So they're coming into kindergarten ready to learn. And that's what great care can do. But a lot of families don't have access to that. They can't afford it. And they remain in informal care until they start kindergarten. And so they're not starting ready to learn.
So this is like a subsidy that you're proposing?
It would, correct. We're proposing a way to provide a subsidy. It does not actually, this legislation doesn't provide the subsidy itself, because this legislation doesn't create new money that doesn't exist. But what it does is it creates a program. It creates, first of all, a mechanism for child care providers to apply for the subsidy. So it's an open solicitation. So that's very different than the way we currently do contracts and subsidies. It's much more accessible for the providers, and it allows them to claim maybe just 1 slot or maybe just 3 slots. It's the bureaucracy would not be the barrier to doing that.
How would you tell the child care programs about this framework if you pass it?
Well, we would hope that you would write a lot of stories at the Sentinel and they would read them.
Okay.
Is part of this effort as well to determine what cost this would be? To look at how many kids would be eligible to participate in this program and estimate the cost of it? Oh, definitely. We would, through the process of legislating, we would get a better sense of, how many kids out there are not currently in care, in center care or in family-based care. The reimbursement rates would actually be set by HHS. So we didn't specify the reimbursement rates in the legislation, but we did establish that a center that has that higher level certification could get a higher rate. And do you have any estimate of how many children might be eligible?
Not off the top of my head. Yeah. Doug?
Do you have an estimate on how much you think this is going to cost?
Well, you would need to know how many are eligible in order to then just do a per pupil, basically. We don't know. What I think it's safe to say is that whatever the council might be able to appropriate would not be enough to provide for every child that could be eligible. That's probably going to be beyond our reach in a single budget year. But my hope would be we could get there over a couple of years.
Has somebody analyzed this yet?
Well, we've drafted the legislation, and then it will go to committee.
Right, so-
And then you'll have lots of discussion and review.
Okay. So the Virginia legislature more or less approved dedicated funding?
Yeah.
Have you been in communication with the Maryland delegation?
We've been in very close touch with the Maryland delegation. We've been advocating, as you know, in the Maryland legislature on behalf of this reform initiative, and we're thrilled to see Maryland's progress matched in Virginia. This is a once-in-a-generation kind of moment, and it is incredibly exciting to see. So this is going to make a huge difference for Montgomery County when this is all taken care of. We're almost there. I think at the beginning of this legislative session, it would have been hard to foresee just how far we've come, but here we are on the verge of a financing deal that will really get Metro back to the kind of quality service that it once was, that people really knew and appreciated.
Do you have a gauge on like how likely they are to pass it, or?
The Virginia legislature or the
No,
Maryland legislature? Maryland seems, like there's very strong support. The governor has accepted the bill. I don't know where we're in a very strong position in Maryland, no question. And certainly the good news coming from Virginia only helps.
Speaking of General Assembly, there's bills right now, one already passed the state Senate and one, I believe, is being considered in the House, very, very likely to pass the House. It would prevent counties from having to release email addresses in response to public information. I believe the council is for those bills. Is that accurate?
Yeah, we took a position in favor of those bills fairly early on in our deliberation. The bills were prepared, I think really MACO has been in the lead, but they would address that issue for sure.
And is that something that you personally think should be curtailed?
Yeah, I think that it's problematic if people are, if you sign up for a newsletter about trash collection, you shouldn't end up getting unsolicited email from political candidates or, companies that want to do your roofing. And currently, that's the state of things.
I have another one. This is county legislation. This is your bill for the NPDU rate to 15% in areas with low farms rates. The council committee's taking that up today, this afternoon, I believe.
That's right.
What are the prospects of that bill? Do you have an update on whether you've been able to find support among your colleagues on this legislation?
Well, this is a big item, and I don't think council members have really had a chance to focus on it. But definitely want to express appreciation to Councilmember Sidney Katz, who is a co-sponsor of the legislation. And I think it's a very compelling proposal, and I think it speaks for itself. And we'll see how the committee discussion goes. But under any circumstance, it's going to come to the full council, and we'll see what council members have to say.
Do you have an idea on the scheduling after it goes through committee today?
Well, my hope is that we would act on it today at committee. We'll see. But, it's a pretty simple piece of legislation, and, it's needed. It's very timely. We've already seen the developer in Westbard revise the proposal there to go from back down to 12.5% MPDUs, despite the council's very strong desire to have any housing there provide 15% MPDUs. So we really don't have time to waste.
Have you gotten any backlash from the development community about this legislation?
I think the views are mixed. There are plenty of parts of the county that are already set for 15%. And there are certainly some in the development community that feel like if they're at 15%, other people should be too. So I would say opinions are divided. And to me, there's more acceptance than you might have expected.
And a political question, any reaction to MCEA not endorsing any council incumbents?
Wasn't a surprise, They have said that their discussions are ongoing, and that's fine. Anyway, that's a very political question. I don't totally know if it's appropriate for this setting, but yeah.
There was a discussion last week at, not your board of directors about the studying likelihood of ending all of the trains that stop at Grosvenor so that they all go to Shady Grove. Do you
Yeah.
have any thoughts on that, or how
Yes.
overdue
Well,
it is or not?
It's very overdue. It's been a high priority for the council. A few years ago, I recommended that we put this in our county priorities and that we state to the state that we want them to push Metro to end the turnbacks on both sides of the red line, not just to Shady Grove, but to Glenmont as well. And we were very pleased that the state and Metro responded favorably, and Metro had presented a plan to do that, but then they walked it back this year. And so the council has spoken out, and many of our elected officials in the state have spoken out, and now we have a new plan from Metro that at least restores, or would restore the service on the Shady Grove side. We'd like to make sure that happens and then move quickly to bring the service to the Glenmont side. You know, a lot of folks don't realize just how much more Metro service we can get in Montgomery County. You know, you can, during peak hours, you can almost double the trains. If half of them are being turned back at Grosvenor, then if they run all the way, you're doubling the trains. We could also take it from 6 cars to 8 cars.
Could we?
Absolutely. Well, they need some investment. I think that would come with the reform funds that are hopefully imminent. But trains could go from 6 to 8 cars, and that's a substantial increase in capacity. And then, of course, trains could run all the way to the ends of the line instead of stopping in, you know, at the first or second stop in Montgomery County. So we can substantially increase the amount of Metro service in Montgomery County. And certainly getting this funding deal will move us even closer.
Why should Metro try to get this service restored back? Like, there's always the argument of, oh, we take a lot of time, we're strapped for cash, we can't afford it. Well, they say that in general, not necessarily about this. Why should Metro consider adding the other end, as you said?
Well, our residents need it. You know, we have people here who are unable to get on trains. You know, Shady Grove is one of the most crowded, most highly used stations in the whole Metro system. And that really, you know, Metro is just not fulfilling its potential. And so we need to provide a lot more service, and we need to, you know, build on and expand Metro and keep growing. Like, Metro is the region's top transportation priority. It's a huge priority in Montgomery County as well.
So you think it should be expanded, not just maintained?
Oh, absolutely. I think service needs to grow with the population. And in fact, it really needs to grow even faster than the population, because when you look at where economic development is happening, it's happening around the Metro. You know, that's where private investment is flowing. It's flowing to areas that are near metros. So Montgomery County needs Metro to provide adequate service so that we can get the benefit of companies coming in to locate near Metro.
Just staying with Metro for one question. The council's debating adding a new station at White Flint, a new station at Forest Glen, a passageway underneath Georgia Avenue at Forest Glen. Metro's sitting there looking at this infusion of cash that's possibly coming to it for their capital needs. Is there any conversations between the county and Metro about these new stations, and whether perhaps with this new infusion they could build them themselves?
I think you know, once the reform plans are solidified, we will need to get right back to the table to figure out, again, how that money will be allocated. So I think that's a great question. And, you know, it's important that Maryland and Montgomery County has a lot of input into how that money gets spent. And we are providing our share of the revenue, and we certainly expect our share of the investment as well. So where exactly station enhancements sit in the priority list, you know, I can't tell you at the moment, but you know, we are absolutely going to need to begin negotiations immediately about priorities for the investment program.
Is there any possibility, I don't know how it's, places how it works, but Montgomery County and Prince George's or wherever invest, the jurisdictions invest more money to help Metro, dare I say, get back to good before expanding it? They say there's a lot of original pieces in Metro that will cost lots of money, the next 10 years to replace.
Well, I mean, that's what a lot of the money is intended for, is to replace outdated equipment, to, enhance stations that aren't functioning as well. So, you're going to see a lot of investments that just are really a matter of catching up on maintenance that was neglected for years. But then, at the same time, we need to be moving forward with improvements and enhancements, and we can do both at the same time.
When does Montrose Parkway East hit the full council?
Presently scheduled for the 20th, not this week. All right, thank you very much.